Let me tell you what happened the last time I tried to have a garden. I bought the good gloves. I actually read the labels on the little plant tags. I told myself this was going to be the year. And for about 2 weeks, I was doing great. I watered, I weeded. I felt like a person who has their life together. Then things got busy. You know how it goes. A week passed, then two. Then I walked outside one morning, looked at my garden beds, and half of what I planted had just quietly given up on life. And honestly, so had I. That was me, every single year, for a while. Money wasted, time wasted. And that particular kind of guilt that only hits when you walk past something you were supposed to take care of and didn't, here is what changed everything for me, and it is simpler than you think. You do not have to be a dedicated gardener to have a beautiful garden. You just have to plant the right things. Plants that come back on their own, plants that handle drought, plants that get bigger every year without you doing a single thing. Today, I am giving you 15 of them. 15 perennials built for people like us busy people, forgetful people, people who want beauty without the babysitting. If you have not subscribed yet, do it now, because this is exactly what I put out every single week. And plant number 6 specifically is worth sticking around for. Let's get into it. Let's start with the one that made me believe I could actually do this. Daylilies are the plant equivalent of that friend who shows up, handles everything, and never complains. They bloom in incredible variety: deep reds, warm oranges, pale yellows, soft pinks, rich purples, and there are thousands of cultivars. So no matter what your garden looks like, there is a daylily that fits. Here is what matters for us. They grow in clumps that naturally smother weeds underneath them. They spread slowly on their own, multiplying year after year, so every few seasons you can divide them and fill in more of your garden for free. They handle clay soil, sandy soil, slopes, containers, and full sun or part shade without missing a beat. The only real maintenance they ask for is dividing the clumps every 4 to 5 years if they start looking crowded. That is genuinely the entire to-do list. One afternoon of work every few years in exchange for months of color every single summer. One important note before we move on. Daylilies are toxic to cats, not dogs, not most other animals. Specifically, cats. If you have outdoor cats, keep that in mind when deciding where to plant them. If you have ever walked past a garden in late summer and thought, what is that tall, cheerful, practically glowing flower? Odds are, it was a coneflower. Coneflowers come in a range that surprises most people. Purple is the classic, and it is stunning. But modern varieties give you deep orange, soft yellow, warm pink, crisp white, and rich magenta. They grow 2 to 4 feet tall and bloom from midsummer well into fall. What makes them perfect for low-effort gardeners is that they genuinely thrive on neglect. Drought tolerant once established. Heat tolerant, comfortable in poor soil. They attract butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds throughout their blooming season. And if you leave the seed heads standing in fall and winter instead of cutting everything back, songbirds feed on them through the coldest months. You have 2 options with coneflowers, and both of them work. Deadhead spent blooms to encourage more flowers, or just leave them entirely alone and let nature handle it. Either way, your garden looks intentional and alive. That is the kind of plant I want in my yard. This one looks like it should be difficult. It is not. Russian sage grows 3 to 5 feet tall in airy, billowing clouds of tiny violet-blue flowers on silver-gray stems. It looks expensive. It looks architectural. It looks like you spent a lot of money and even more time getting it right. In reality, it wants full sun and well-drained soil, and then it absolutely does not want your attention. This plant is drought-tolerant to a degree that almost seems unfair. It handles heat. It handles poor soil. It does not need fertilizing. In fact, fertilizing it too heavily makes it floppy and reduces flowering. The less you fuss with Russian sage, the better it performs. It blooms from midsummer through early fall, giving you months of that hazy lavender blue color that looks incredible next to warm oranges and yellows. In winter, the silvery stems hold their structure beautifully. Cut it back hard in early spring, and it comes back full and healthy. 1 task per year, that is it. Every garden has at least one shady corner that nobody knows what to do with. Hostas fix that. Hostas are grown primarily for their foliage, and those leaves are extraordinary. We are talking huge, architectural leaves in deep blue-green, chartreuse yellow, solid forest green, and gorgeous variegated combinations of cream and green or golden green. Some varieties stay compact at 6 inches wide, others spread to 4 feet across and become the centerpiece of an entire bed. They thrive in shade true shade, the kind that stumps most plants, and once they are established, they are surprisingly drought tolerant. They come back every year, and here's the part I love. They come back bigger. Every single year, a well-placed hosta gets more impressive. You plant it once, and it just keeps rewarding you. The main thing that bothers hostas is slugs, which can leave small holes in the leaves. A ring of crushed eggshells or a little diatomaceous earth around the base handles that without any real effort. Beyond that, hostas are almost entirely hands-off once they are in the ground. This is the plant I recommend to everyone who tells me they have killed everything they have ever grown. Black-eyed Susans are those cheerful, bright yellow flowers with the bold, dark center that you see growing in meadows, along roadsides, and in gardens all over the country. There is a reason they show up everywhere. They are among the toughest perennials in existence. They are drought tolerant. They self-seed, meaning they spread on their own and give you more plants next year without you lifting a finger. They are native to North America, which means they evolved to handle this climate without any help from you. They attract pollinators constantly. They bloom from midsummer through fall. You can deadhead them to keep the blooms coming, or you can leave them entirely alone and let them do their thing. They genuinely do not care. And if you are building a garden for the first time and you are not sure what will survive, plant black-eyed Susans. They will be there next year and the year after that as well. If there is one plant on this list that I have genuinely never seen die, it is sedum. Sedum comes in low-growing ground cover varieties and taller upright types, and both are essentially indestructible. The tall varieties, things like Autumn Joy, grow to about 2 feet, produce large, flat flower heads that open pink in late summer and deepen to copper red by fall, and then hold their structure as dried seed heads all winter. They are interesting in every single season. Sedum thrives in poor, dry, rocky soil that would stress most other plants. It stores water in its thick, succulent-like leaves, which means it handles drought with ease. It asks for full sun and good drainage, and then genuinely wants you to leave it alone. For problem spots, a sunny slope that dries out fast, a spot next to a driveway where nothing wants to grow, a rocky area. You have no idea how to deal with. Sedum is your answer. Plant it, step back, and let it do what it does. Now we are going somewhere most flowering plants refuse to go. The shade. Astilbe is one of the most underrated perennials on this entire list, and I say that because most people overlook it. If you have a shaded garden under mature trees, a north-facing bed, a spot that simply does not get full sun, most flowering plants are going to disappoint you there. Astilbe absolutely thrives. It produces feathery, plume-like flower stalks that look like something between a firework and a paintbrush. Pinks, reds, whites, deep purples, soft lavenders. The color range is genuinely beautiful. And depending on the varieties you choose, you can have blooms from early summer through late summer, sometimes longer, plant a few different cultivars, and you can have rotating color in your shade garden for months. One honest note. Astilbe appreciates consistent moisture. It is not drought tolerant. If you have a naturally moist or shaded area, it is perfect. If your soil dries out frequently, plan on watering it during dry stretches. Beyond that, it is low maintenance and delivers more visual drama to a shade garden than almost anything else. This one does something that most perennials only promise. It blooms all summer. Catmint forms low, mounding clumps of soft gray-green foliage covered in small lavender-blue flowers from late spring onward. It is one of the best edging plants available. It softens the front of any garden bed beautifully, spills slightly over pathways in a way that looks intentional, and fills in gaps between larger plants without taking over. It is extremely drought tolerant once established, handles poor soil well, and attracts pollinators constantly throughout its long bloom season. Cut it back by about a third after the first big flush of flowers and it blooms again. Repeat that once more in late summer, and you can have color from May through September. Deer tend to avoid it due to the aromatic foliage. It is one of the most reliable, beautiful, and genuinely low-maintenance perennials available, and it is still surprisingly underused. If you have a sunny border that needs an edging plant, this is the one. Salvia is the plant that made me stop thinking of purple as a secondary color in the garden. Perennial salvias produce tall spikes of deep violet, blue purple, or bright red flowers that stand upright and hold their color for months. They bloom from late spring through midsummer, and if you cut them back after the first flush, most varieties rebloom through fall. Some barely stop flowering at all. They are drought tolerant, heat tolerant, and completely unbothered by poor soil. They attract hummingbirds and butterflies in huge numbers, I mean constantly, all day long. Deer leave them alone due to the aromatic leaves, and they hold their structure beautifully, meaning the garden does not look tired or collapsed even later in the season. For height, color, pollinator activity, and sheer visual reliability, few perennials match salvia. It earns its space in every planting. Yarrow looks delicate. It is the opposite of delicate. Yarrow produces flat-topped flower clusters in yellow, white, pink, red, and peachy orange on upright stems that typically reach 2 to 3 feet tall. It blooms from early summer through midsummer, and if you deadhead the spent flowers, it often continues into fall. This plant handles drought, poor soil, full sun, and heat without complaint. It has been used in gardens for centuries for good reason. It thrives in conditions that would stress or kill most other perennials. The dried flowers hold their color beautifully and are excellent in arrangements. If you cut them at peak and hang them upside down to dry, you get months of interest indoors as well. One thing to know, in very rich, heavily amended soil, yarrow can spread more aggressively than you might want. Give it a spot with leaner conditions and it will behave beautifully and stay where you put it. Lavender is one of those plants that actively rewards neglect. It wants poor, lean, well-draining soil. It does not want heavy fertilizing. It does not want wet feet overwatering. Is genuinely the most reliable way to kill it. If you are the type of gardener who tends to forget about your plants for stretches of time and then feels guilty about it, lavender is the plant that was built for you. It blooms in those iconic purple spikes that are fragrant, long-lasting, and beautiful in both the garden and in a vase. It is a natural insect repellent, so planting it near a patio or seating area actually reduces mosquitoes in that space. The dried flowers are useful in sachets, in cooking, and in teas. In mild climates, it stays evergreen, giving your garden structure and interest even in winter. English lavender is the hardiest variety and survives Zone 5 winters reliably with good drainage. If you are in Zone 4 or colder, grow it in containers you can bring inside before hard frost, or treat it as an annual. Pure sunshine in plant form. That is the most accurate description I have. Coreopsis produces bright, button-like flowers, mostly in cheerful yellow, though there are pink, orange, and bicolor varieties, and it blooms for an extraordinarily long season. Some varieties start in late spring and do not stop until frost arrives in the fall. That is 4 to 6 months of color from a single plant. It is heat and drought tolerant. It actually prefers lean soil over fertilizing, makes it floppy, and reduces the flowers. Many modern varieties are self-cleaning, meaning spent blooms drop on their own without deadheading. It works in mass plantings, along borders, in containers, and tucked between larger plants that have already finished their season. If your garden has a sunny spot that you want to be cheerful and colorful from May through October with almost nothing asked of you in return, Coreopsis is your plant. This one delivers more visual drama per square foot than almost anything else I know. In spring, creeping phlox produces such a thick, dense carpet of flowers, hot pink, magenta, purple, white, pale lavender, that the foliage almost disappears entirely beneath them. It cascades over rocks, tumbles over retaining walls, floods, slopes, and hillsides with color in a way that genuinely looks like you spent serious money and serious time to achieve it. After it finishes blooming, it becomes a neat, tidy, evergreen mat of fine foliage that holds its color year-round, keeps soil in place on slopes, and crowds out weeds for the rest of the season. For rock gardens, hillsides, between stepping stones, or planted along the top of a wall where it can spill over the edge, this plant looks intentional and designed. The maintenance is a light trim after blooming to keep it compact. That is the whole job description. 1 haircut per season. This one solves one of the most frustrating garden problems there is. Liriope looks like a grass, but is actually a flowering perennial. It has dark, strappy, arching leaves that stay attractive all season, and in late summer it sends up spikes of small purple or white flowers that are genuinely charming. But the real reason to grow it is what it does as a ground cover. It handles deep shade. It handles full sun. It tolerates drought, compacted soil, and slopes where almost nothing else will grow. Those dry, root-choked spots under large trees where the soil is packed hard and nothing survives, Liriope handles them with no drama at all. Once established, it forms a dense enough mat to crowd out most weeds. It holds soil on hillsides. In mild climates, it stays evergreen through winter. It is not the flashiest plant on this list, but it may be the most useful one. And useful is what actually changes a garden. I saved this one for last because I want it to be the one you walk away thinking about. Carl Forster grows 4 to 6 feet tall in a neat, upright clump that does not flop, does not sprawl, and does not spread aggressively. In late spring, it sends up feathery green plumes that catch the light beautifully. By midsummer, those plumes have turned warm gold. By fall, the entire plant is a rich bronze that glows in the low autumn light. In winter, it stands holding its structure through cold, through snow, through wind, and sways gently on clear days in a way that is genuinely calming. This is a four-season plant in the truest sense. Most perennials give you a few weeks of peak interest and then fade into the background. Carl Forster is interesting in every month of the year. It is drought tolerant once established, handles heat well, needs no fertilizing, and requires no staking or support. The entire annual maintenance task is one hard cut in late winter or early spring before new growth emerges. Cut it down to 4 to 6 inches from the ground. That is it. One haircut per year, in exchange for 4 seasons of height, movement, texture, sound, and beauty. It is the most efficient plant on this list, and one of the best perennials you can grow. All right, 15 plants. Let me bring this together before you go. If you have a shady corner you do not know what to do with, Hostas, Astilbe, and Liriope. Those 3 will transform any dark, difficult area of your yard. If you have a hot, dry, sunny spot that drains fast and bakes in summer, sedum, yarrow, coreopsis, Russian sage, and black-eyed Susan. Those 5 were practically designed for that environment, for edges and ground cover that crowds out weeds. Creeping phlox catmint and Liriope. Again, for color, fragrance, and pollinators all season long. Lavender, coneflower, salvia, and daylilies. Your butterflies, bees, and hummingbirds will thank you. And for structure, drama, and something that looks genuinely designed, Russian sage and Carl Forster grass. These 2 make any garden look like someone planned it on purpose. Here is what I want you to actually do with this. Do not try to plant all 15 at once. Pick 3. Just 3, based on where you have space and what problem you are trying to solve. Plant them this season and watch what happens. Because once you see how little these plants ask of you and how much they give back, you are going to wonder why you ever spent money on annuals that were gone by August. There is genuinely nothing better than walking outside on a summer morning, coffee in your hand, and seeing a garden full of life and color that you made happen. And the honest truth is, it is so much easier than anyone ever told you. More of this every single week right here. Subscribe if you are not already, hit the bell so you actually see it, and drop a comment below. Tell me which 3 you are starting with. I read every single one. Now, go get your hands dirty. You have everything you need. I'll see you in the next one.